You've seen this image 1,000 times. A lone lighthouse, a monster wave, 50 feet tall, crashing against stone, a tiny figure in the doorway, the keeper frozen between shelter and oblivion. The photo has 12 million views on Google Images. It's called La Jument, the mare, built in 1911 off the coast of Brittany, France. You've been told this represents the triumph of human courage over nature, Victorian engineering genius conquering the untamable sea. You've been lied to. Stop. Look at what you're actually seeing. A 50-meter stone tower standing on a rock barely larger than a tennis court, 14 miles offshore, surrounded by nothing but murderous Atlantic Ocean. Waves weighing hundreds of tons smash against it every winter storm. The structure has stood for over a century without significant damage. Now consider this: modern offshore oil platforms built with satellite positioning, computer modeling, titanium alloys, and billion-dollar budgets regularly get destroyed in these same waters. Deepwater Horizon cost $560 million and sank. Ekofisk Bravo nearly collapsed in 1980 despite cutting-edge engineering. But this tower, built in 1911 with rowboats, hand tools, no electricity, no radio communication, no weather satellites, no rescue helicopters. Does this make any sense to you? The official story gets even better. They claim teams of workers rowed out to this death-trap rock during brief weather windows, somehow drilled into granite harder than steel while standing in freezing water, then assembled multi-ton, precisely cut stone blocks into a perfectly engineered structure, all while being constantly threatened by drowning. And they did this hundreds of times across the world's most dangerous coastlines, all in the same 50-year period right after the Napoleonic Wars supposedly devastated and depopulated Europe. Think about it. I'm going to prove to you, using nothing but basic mathematics and physics, that what you've been taught is not just unlikely, it's physically impossible. And then I'm going to show you what these structures really are, where they actually came from, and why the truth has been buried deeper than their foundations. Because once you see the numbers, you can't unsee them. Once you understand the engineering, the official story collapses like a house of cards in a hurricane. The question isn't whether we've been deceived. The question is, what else are they hiding? Let's start with the weight, because math doesn't lie, even when historians do. Let's turn on the calculator and just count. Take Bishop Rock Lighthouse, stands 9 miles off the coast of Cornwall, England, completed in 1858. The official record states the structure contains 6,500 tons of granite blocks and cement. That's just the visible tower above water, not counting the foundation, the equipment, the scaffolding materials that were supposedly consumed during construction. Add everything together, and you're looking at a minimum of 8,000 tons of cargo that needed to reach a rock surrounded by ship-destroying waters. We're told this was transported on wooden sailing vessels, barks, and schooners, the workhorses of Victorian maritime commerce. In calm harbor conditions, these ships could carry perhaps 100 tons safely. But we're not talking about calm harbors, we're talking about the western approaches, the graveyard of the Atlantic, waves that snap masts like twigs, currents that drag ships onto rocks, weather that changes from clear to storm in minutes. The most interesting part is just beginning. Write in the comments what city you're from, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching us from where? Drop a like and subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. Mark yourselves in the comments. Which country are you from? Hit that like button and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography. Right where you are right now, smash that thumbs up and subscribe. We're just warming up. And tell us, where are you watching from? Support the video with a like and hit that subscribe button. The climax is near. Share what corner of the world you're in right now. Drop a like and make sure to subscribe. Things are developing rapidly. Write your city in the chat. Slam that like and hit subscribe so you don't get lost. All the juiciest stuff is ahead. Let's get acquainted. Who's from where? Hit like and subscribe right now. The intrigue is building. Write where you're watching this episode from and reward us with a like and subscription. Emotions are off the charts. Quickly write what city you're from, drop a fat like and subscribe to the channel. Any captain with half a brain would reduce cargo by at least 30% in these conditions. Let's be generous and say 70 tons per voyage. That's being extremely optimistic. Now do the math. 8,000 tons divided by 70 tons per trip equals 114 voyages minimum, just for the raw materials. But wait, you also need fresh water for the workers and for mixing cement. You need food. These men supposedly worked for months at a time. You need replacement tools, rope, chains, coal for any steam equipment, lamp oil, medicine, clothing. Add another 50 supply runs at minimum. We're now at 164 successful round-trip voyages to an isolated rock where ships regularly smash to pieces. The navigation season in these waters, 4 months per year maximum. Maybe 120 workable days if you're lucky. Bishop Rock supposedly took 5 years to build. That means one fully loaded ship had to successfully navigate to this death trap, unload multi-ton granite blocks in heavy seas, and return safely every single day of every available season for 5 straight years. Have you ever watched footage of boats trying to approach rocky shores in even moderate waves? The vessels get thrown around like toys. Wooden hulls splinter, cargo shifts and crushes men. One mistake and the entire ship goes down. But somehow, across 164 voyages, there's no record of a single major loss. No ships wrecked, no cargo lost. Perfect success rate. It's like claiming you drove a horse-drawn cart across a tightrope suspended over a canyon, loaded with nitroglycerin once a day for 5 years straight, and never had an accident. The statistical probability of this approaches 0. Either they had technology we don't know about, or this didn't happen the way we're told. There's no third option. But the transportation impossibility is just the opening act. Wait until you see the work window problem, because the real question isn't how they moved the stones. It's when they could even touch them. Shift your gaze from the ships to the rock itself. Yeah, because what happens when workers supposedly arrived is where the official story doesn't just strain credibility, it snaps it completely. The construction records for La Jument Lighthouse are public, archived, verifiable, and they contain a detail so staggering that historians mention it almost in passing as if it's perfectly normal. In the entire first year of construction, 1897, workers successfully landed on the rock exactly 7 times. 7 total accumulated work time for that entire year, 8 hours. Let that settle for a moment. 8 hours, 1 standard working day. That's what an entire year of construction produced in terms of actual contact with the site. Now let's count what supposedly happened in those 8 hours. The foundation preparation for La Jument required drilling anchor holes into the granite base, deep, precise holes to secure the iron bolts that would anchor the first stone courses. The engineers specified a minimum of 24 anchor points, each hole needing to reach 40 centimeters into solid rock. Have you ever drilled into granite? Not concrete, not brick, granite, one of the hardest natural substances on Earth. With modern carbide-tipped electric hammer drills, a single 40-centimeter hole takes a trained operator roughly 45 minutes under ideal conditions. Dry surface, stable footing, full electrical power. These men had hand drills, steel chisels and hammers, standing in knee-deep freezing Atlantic water soaked by spray on a surface more slippery than ice. Let's be extraordinarily generous. Let's say they worked 3 times faster than modern workers with power tools. That gives us 15 minutes per hole. 24 holes times 15 minutes equals 360 minutes. 6 hours just for the anchor holes. That leaves 2 hours for everything else. Clearing debris, measuring, marking positions, hauling equipment from boats, safety lines, getting men onto the rock in the first place. 2 hours for a foundation that needed to support 6,000 tons of stone for centuries. I know what you're thinking. Maybe they worked faster than we assume. Fine, make them 10 times faster than modern workers with power tools. The math still doesn't work. Not even close. It's like claiming you built a skyscraper foundation during a single lunch break with a teaspoon. Either the official timeline is pure fiction or the laws of physics operated differently in 1897. There's no third option. This is not a rounding error. This is not a gap in the records. This is evidence that the construction story we've been sold is a fabrication from beginning to end. Remember this number, 8 hours. We'll return to it when the full picture snaps into focus because the time window problem is shocking. But the precision of the stonework makes it completely irrelevant. And here we approach the part that silences every engineer who looks at it closely enough. Forget the transportation. Forget the time window. Look at the stones themselves because what was done to them is flatly impossible for the tools that supposedly did it. Pull up any high-resolution photograph of the Eddystone Lighthouse completed in 1882 off Plymouth, England. Zoom in on the block joints. What you're looking at are not rough-cut boulders slapped together with thick mortar the way Victorian builders constructed everything else: bridges, harbors, railway stations. These are precision-engineered interlocking blocks with dovetail joints running in 3 dimensions simultaneously: horizontal, vertical, and radial to account for the tower's curve. Each block weighs between 1 and 3 tons. Each joint fits its neighbor to within 2 to 3 millimeters across surfaces nearly a meter long, and the entire assembly curves because a lighthouse tower is round, which means every single block has a unique geometry. Not one block in the entire structure is identical to another. We're told quarry workers cut these by hand, with chisels, on the shore of Devon. Do you seriously believe this? Let's count what this actually requires. To cut a dovetail joint accurate to 3 millimeters over a 90 centimeter surface in granite by hand, a master stonemason under ideal conditions needs roughly 4 hours per joint face. Each block has 6 faces requiring precision cuts. That's 24 hours of expert cutting per block. Eddystone contains approximately 2,171 blocks. Multiply 2,171 blocks times 24 hours equals 52,104 hours of precision stone cutting. That's 25 years of continuous work for a single master craftsman working every day without rest. The official construction timeline for Eddystone, 4 years total. The cutting alone would take 6 times longer than the entire reported construction period. And here's the detail that makes your blood run cold. If even one block was cut wrong, one joint off by 5 millimeters, the structural integrity of the entire tower would be compromised under wave loading. There is zero margin for error when you're engineering something to withstand forces that bend steel. Yet, supposedly, across 2,171 unique precision blocks, there was not a single miscut, not one replacement, not one recorded failure. It's like claiming a blindfolded craftsman carved 2,000 unique Swiss watch components with a kitchen knife, and every single one fit perfectly on the first attempt. Either these blocks were cut with technology that didn't officially exist in 1882, or someone else cut them entirely. There's no third option. This is not craftsmanship. This is evidence of a manufacturing capability we haven't been told about. But the scariest part isn't even the cutting. It's what holds these blocks together, and why it's still holding. What holds those impossible blocks together is, if anything, more disturbing than the blocks themselves. Ask any structural engineer one simple question. Can hydraulic cement cure properly when continuously saturated with salt water during the setting process? The answer is immediate and unanimous. No, it cannot. Salt water disrupts the chemical bonding process that gives cement its strength. It's not an opinion, it's basic chemistry. Now look at where lighthouse foundations sit. At or below the high tide line, waves crash over them constantly during construction. The very environment these structures were supposedly built in is the environment that makes their construction material chemically inert. We're told they used _quote _2 problem solved, say the historians. Move along. Except quick-setting marine cement in the 1860s was experimental technology barely capable of surviving calm harbor conditions. The formula that actually works in aggressive marine environments, Portland cement, with polymer additives and corrosion inhibitors, wasn't developed until the mid-20th century. We're talking nearly 100 years after these lighthouses were supposedly built. Let's count what modern marine engineering tells us. Standard marine concrete in harsh North Atlantic conditions degrades at approximately 2 to 3 millimeters per decade on exposed surfaces. That's with modern polymer reinforced formulations specifically designed for saltwater resistance. Bishop Rock's foundation has been continuously battered since 1858. That's 165 years. At 2 millimeters degradation per decade, we'd expect 33 millimeters of surface erosion minimum using modern materials. The actual measured degradation of Bishop Rock's original foundation cement, essentially zero. Victorian cement mixed in salt spray set underwater is outperforming modern polymer-reinforced marine concrete by a factor we cannot calculate because the degradation is too small to measure. How is this possible? Look closely at photographs of the original joint material, not the repaired sections, the original. It doesn't look layered the way cement looks when poured. It looks fused, continuous, as if the stone itself was somehow softened and pressed together, the boundary between block and mortar almost invisible. It's like finding a 150-year-old wooden rowboat that's more waterproof than a modern fiberglass yacht, and being told the secret was better craftsmanship. Either 19th century cement workers accidentally invented a formula that modern materials science still cannot replicate, or these joints are not cement at all. There's no third option. This is not weathering. This is not luck. This is evidence of a bonding process we don't recognize because we didn't develop it. Remember that word fused. We'll return to it when we discuss what these structures were actually designed to do and why the answer will reframe everything you've seen so far. The cement mystery is deep. The crane paradox is deeper. Let's return to the construction site itself because there's a problem so fundamental, so blindingly obvious that it's remarkable historians have never addressed it directly. To lift multi-ton granite blocks, you need a crane. This is not debatable. A 2-ton block cannot be raised by hand. You need mechanical advantage, a lifting apparatus anchored securely enough to bear the load, plus dynamic forces from wave motion. Here's the problem. To anchor a crane capable of lifting 2-ton blocks on a wave-swept granite surface, you need deep foundation bolts, steel rods driven at least 60 centimeters into solid rock, set in multiple points to distribute the lateral load. Engineering specifications for this type of temporary lifting equipment require anchor points rated to at least 3 times the maximum load. For a 2-ton lift, that's 6 tons of anchor resistance per bolt cluster. To drill those anchor points, you need a stable working platform. To have a stable working platform, you need structures already in place. To put structures in place, you need the crane. Do you see what just happened? The logic forms a perfect closed circle with no entry point. The first stone cannot be placed without the crane. The crane cannot be secured without the first stones. This is not an engineering challenge. It's a logical impossibility. Official drawings from the Eddystone and Bishop Rock construction archives show wooden derrick cranes supposedly bolted directly to bare rock. Look at these drawings carefully. The anchor points shown are laughably inadequate. 4 small bolts into surface granite supporting a wooden arm expected to swing 2-ton loads in Atlantic swells. Any structural engineer will tell you those anchors would fail on the first lift, catastrophically. Modern construction solves this exact problem with jack-up barges, self-elevating platforms that stand on the seabed and provide a stable deck above wave level. They also use helicopter lifts for initial placement. These technologies didn't exist until the 1950s and 1970s, respectively. They had rowboats and wooden derricks, supposedly. It's like trying to lift yourself off the ground by pulling up on your own shoelaces and being told that with enough Victorian determination, it works fine. Where are the crane failures in the records? Where are the dropped blocks? Where are the workers crushed by shifting loads on rocking platforms? Where are the insurance claims, the coroner's reports, the engineering post-mortems? Nowhere. None? Zero. Either they possessed lifting technology that has been completely erased from the historical record, or these structures were already standing when the Victorians arrived. There's no third option. This is not a gap in the documentation. This is evidence of a story that was never true. And now zoom out, Because this crane paradox isn't unique to one lighthouse. It repeats identically across a dozen structures on 3 continents. Now step back from the individual structures, all the way back, because when you look at the full map, something shifts in your chest. This isn't one anomalous lighthouse that defies explanation. Open any maritime history atlas and look at the dates. Eddystone, England, rebuilt to its current impossible form in 1882. Bishop Rock, England, completed 1858. Fastnet Rock, Ireland, 1854. La Jument, France, 1911. Armen, France. Construction began 1867, completed 1881. Longships, England, 1873. Tillamook Rock, Oregon, 1881. St. George Reef, California is completed 1892. 8 structures, 3 countries, 2 continents, all in the most ferociously exposed oceanic locations on Earth, all supposedly built using identical primitive methods, all completed within a single 60-year window, who decided simultaneously across multiple nations with no shared communication infrastructure that right now was the moment to attempt the most audacious construction projects in human history. All at once, all using the same techniques, all succeeding perfectly. Do you seriously believe this was independent parallel inspiration? Let's count what coordinating this actually required. 8 major offshore construction projects running concurrently across Britain, Ireland, France, and America, each requiring specialized granite quarrying, precision stone cutting, marine logistics, and engineering expertise that supposedly didn't exist in standardized form, each succeeding without a single structural failure. The British Empire at its peak couldn't coordinate 8 simultaneous infrastructure projects on dry land without cost overruns, collapses, and scandals. Yet somehow, across sovereign nations in the most hostile environment on Earth, everything proceeded in lockstep, perfectly, quietly. It's like 8 different countries independently deciding on the same day to build functioning nuclear reactors, using only published recipes from a cookbook nobody can find anymore. We're told this was the Victorian age of progress, a golden era of engineering confidence. But here's what we're not told. The 1850s and 1860s were a period of massive social upheaval across Europe and America. The Irish famine had just depopulated entire regions. The American Civil War consumed the United States from 1861 to 1865. France was in political crisis. Britain was stretched across a global empire hemorrhaging resources. And yet, somehow, this was the precise moment chosen to attempt the impossible. Everywhere, at once. This is not a pattern of human ambition. This is a pattern of coordinated narrative construction. Multiple governments simultaneously establishing the same false provenance for structures they found, not built. We see identical timing. We see identical methods. We see identical impossibilities. We see identical silence about how it was actually done. This means only one thing. The story was written after the fact, by people who needed an explanation for towers that were already standing. And if that's true, then where did these structures actually come from? The answer starts with old maps, maps that show a world the history books refuse to acknowledge. The old maps don't lie. The people who made them do. Track down pre-1800 maritime portolans, the professional navigation charts used by working sea captains whose lives depended on their accuracy, not the decorative versions sold in museum gift shops, the real working documents held in private collections and rarely digitized, the carte pisane, the Dulcer portolan, navigation folios from the Portuguese Maritime Archives. Look at the coastlines around Fastnet Rock, around Bishop Rock, around Armen. They're different, dramatically different. Areas now sitting under 40 to 60 meters of open Atlantic water are marked as shallows, as navigable channels, in several charts as named landmarks, headlands, promontories, coastal waypoints used for navigation, the rocks, where our _4_ lighthouses stand, are marked not as isolated ocean hazards, but as elevated points on coastal terrain, hilltops, watchtower positions, part of connected coastal geography. Official historians call these cartographic errors, understandable mistakes by pre-scientific mapmakers. Really? These were professional navigators, men who crossed open oceans using stellar observation and dead reckoning, achieving positional accuracy that still impresses modern sailors. Their charts were commercial products, bought and sold, staked against, literally navigated upon. An error that confused open ocean with dry land wouldn't produce a cartographic mistake. It would produce a shipwreck. Immediately, do you seriously believe that multiple independent cartographers across different countries and centuries all made the identical error of drawing land where there was only ocean? One mistaken chart is an error. 3 independent charts showing the same non-existent coastline is a pattern. A dozen charts from different nations, different centuries, all agreeing on geography that supposedly never existed. That's not cartography. That's memory. Now do the mathematics of sea level. A drop of just 60 meters in ocean depth within the range of documented post-glacial variation transforms the entire picture. The Fastnet Rock becomes a hilltop on a coastal peninsula. Bishop Rock sits on a ridge above a river valley. Armen rises from the center of a broad, shallow plain. Every single impossibility we've cataloged evaporates. Materials transported by road, not by ship. Workers on stable dry ground, not rocking boats. Precision stonework completed in proper workshops, not on wave-washed granite. Construction timelines that make sense. Crane paradox dissolved. There was solid earth to anchor equipment. It's like finding a perfectly preserved city at the bottom of a lake and being told it was built by scuba divers, or the water rose. Either professional navigators across 5 centuries independently hallucinated identical non-existent coastlines, or the ocean was genuinely lower when those charts were made. There's no third option. This is not a mapping anomaly. This is evidence of a world that existed before the water came, and when the water came, it came fast. Fast enough that the towers survived, but everything else drowned. If the water rose, and the maps prove it did, then something caused it, something enormous, something recent, and here is where the thought makes you genuinely cold. We're not talking about glacial melt over 10,000 years. Glacial processes are gradual, measurable, geologically documented in sediment layers across every continent. What the maps describe is different. Coastlines that professional navigators recorded as functional geography, named, charted, navigated, that are now sitting under 60 meters of open ocean. Let's count what 60 meters of sea level rise actually means at a global scale. The total volume of water required to raise global sea levels by 60 meters, approximately 130 million cubic kilometers. That's more water than currently exists in all of Earth's polar ice combined. By a factor of nearly 2. Standard glacial melt cannot produce this. The ice simply isn't there. So where did the water come from? Official geology has no answer. Official geology insists this level of sea level change is impossible within historical timeframes. Thousands of years minimum, they say. Hundreds of thousands more likely. But the charts exist. The coastlines are drawn. The watchtowers that are now our impossible lighthouses are marked on those charts as ordinary elevated terrain features, unremarkable enough to serve merely as navigation waypoints. This means the catastrophe happened after those charts were drawn, within recorded navigational history, recently. Think about what that means. A global event of almost incomprehensible scale, one that submerged millions of square kilometers of inhabited coastline, erased entire civilizations, and permanently altered the geography of every ocean on Earth, happened close enough in time that professional navigators remembered the old coastlines, and we have been taught absolutely nothing about it. No mass displacement records, no refugee accounts, no geological event horizon in the sediment cores that matches this timeline. The evidence has been either lost, ignored, or actively excluded from the history we're given. It's like waking up in a house where every room is flooded to the ceiling, and the person handing you a snorkel insists there was never any water, and certainly no flood worth mentioning. Either a global catastrophe of this magnitude happened in recent historical time and was subsequently buried from the official record, or every pre-1800 maritime cartographer on 3 continents was systematically incompetent in the identical way. There's no third option. This is not a gap in our knowledge. This is evidence of deliberate erasure. Now remember the 8 hours from Part 3. Remember the fused cement joints from Part 5. Every impossibility we've documented collapses into perfect sense the moment you accept what the maps are telling us. The towers were built on dry land by someone who knew exactly what they were doing, and what they were building was not a lighthouse.